They waited until the birthday cake was on the table to tell me I was worthless in my own house. My name is Margaret Ellis. I am 62 years old. I have cooked over 20,000 meals in this kitchen. I have raised 2 children, buried a husband, and held this family together with my own 2 hands. And on my 62nd birthday, my son looked at me, smiled, and said, "Mom, let us be honest. You have never contributed anything financial to this family. It is time you sell your little annex and move to a senior home." My daughter-in-law nodded. My grandson stared at his plate. I did not cry. I did not scream. I cut the cake and said, "That is an interesting idea, David." Because what he did not know, what none of them knew, was that under the loose floorboard in my bedroom, there was a small green safe. And inside that safe was proof that I owned everything they thought was theirs. And a secret my mother kept for 40 years that would change where I would live for the rest of my life. If you have ever been made to feel invisible in your own family, stay with me. This story is for you. Welcome to Silent Legacy. Every family has a story. Every silence hides a truth. Here we tell unforgettable stories about mothers, fathers, grandparents, and ordinary people whose lives were changed by love, betrayal, sacrifice, and long-buried family secrets. If you believe the quietest voices can leave the greatest impact, you have found your home. This is Margaret's story. My birthday was on a Tuesday. I have always liked Tuesdays. They are quiet. No one expects anything from a Tuesday. Thomas, my late husband, used to say I celebrated like a sparrow. Just a little bread, a little song, and I was happy. Thomas passed away 18 months ago. A heart attack in his workshop behind the house. He was 64. He was sanding a small wooden chair for our granddaughter Lily. He just stopped, sat down, and was gone. The doctor said he felt no pain. I hope that is true. After he left, the house became too loud in its silence. So when my son David called and said, "Mom, Jessica and I are thinking of moving back from the city. The kids could use a yard and you could use company," I thought it was an answer to a prayer. I live in the annex. It is a small 2-room addition Thomas built for my mother 20 years ago. It has its own bathroom and a small kitchenette, but we share the main kitchen in the main house. The main house has 3 bedrooms, a living room, and the garden Thomas and I planted in 1983. At first it worked. I watched Noah, who is 9, and Lily, who is 6, after school. I cooked when Jessica had late showings. Jessica sells real estate. She is always busy. I never asked for rent. I thought family does not charge family. But slowly the language changed. It was no longer our kitchen. It became the kitchen. It was no longer Mom's garden. It became the yard that needs landscaping. Jessica started moving my things. My old cast iron pans, the ones I seasoned for 30 years, were put in a box in the garage. She said they made the kitchen look old and cheap. She bought new white pans that everything sticks to. David started talking about property values. He is a loan officer at a bank. He talks about equity the way other people talk about weather. So for my 62nd birthday, I decided to make a nice dinner. I made roast chicken with rosemary from the garden Thomas planted. I made mashed potatoes the way David liked them when he was little, with lots of butter. I bought a small chocolate cake from Miller's Bakery. I set the table with the good plates, the ones with blue flowers that my mother brought from Maine in 1972 when she came to visit and never really left my heart. David arrived 40 minutes late. He did not apologize. Jessica was on her phone, talking about a client who wanted a house with a bigger closet. Noah gave me a drawing. It was of me at a piano. He remembered that I used to play. I taught him a little song last winter. Lily hugged me around my waist and whispered, "Happy birthday, Grandma, you smell like home." That hug kept me alive for the next hour. We sat down. I poured water. David cleared his throat. He has a special throat clear he uses when he wants to sound like he is in a meeting. "Mom," he said, "Jessica and I have been talking about the future. About sustainability." Jessica put her phone down. That is how I knew it was serious. She never puts her phone down. "This arrangement," David continued, "is not working long term. The house needs a new roof. The plumbing in the main bathroom is original from the 80s. I am paying for all the utilities, the internet, the property taxes. And you have the entire annex to yourself. I have 2 small rooms, I thought. You have 3 bedrooms, a living room, a garage, and a garden. Jessica smiled that real estate smile. Margaret, we love you, we really do. But you have to understand, from an investment perspective, the annex is wasted square footage. If we demolished it and built a 2-car garage, we could increase the property value by at least 40%. And we found a wonderful place for you. Sunny Pines. It is not a nursing home, it is an active senior community. They have piano nights and a nurse on call and bingo. David nodded. Mom, let us be honest. You never really had a career. Dad was the provider, you kept house, which we appreciate, but financially you never contributed. If we sell the property now, while the market is hot, we could get maybe $650,000. We split it 50-50. That is more than generous. You would have enough for 10 years at Sunny Pines and then some. The word contributed hung in the air. It was heavier than the roast chicken. I looked at my hands. I have small hands. Veins like rivers on a map. A small white scar on my left thumb from a sewing needle in 1989 when I was hemming David's graduation gown at 2 a.m. because we could not afford a tailor. These hands had washed his vomit when he had flu. These hands had typed every invoice for Thomas's carpentry business for 30 years for free, so we could save on a bookkeeper. These hands had braided Lily's hair. I did not say any of that. Women my age have learned that listing your sacrifices makes you sound desperate. I smiled. I cut the cake. I gave the biggest slice to Noah, the smallest slice to myself. Thank you for being so honest, David, I said. You have given me a lot to think about. Let me take a few days. Jessica looked pleased. She thought I had said yes. David looked relieved. That night, after they went to bed, I sat in my annex and listened to the house breathe. Every house breathes if you listen long enough. I know every creak in this house because Thomas and I built it. In 1983 we had a loan, a borrowed truck, a baby on the way, and a piece of land that was mostly rocks. I drew the plans on graph paper from the library, because Thomas could not draw a straight line. I carried lumber while 4 months pregnant with David, and now my son was telling me I had never contributed. At 2 a.m, I could not sleep. I got up. I moved the small rag rug in my bedroom. It is a rug Thomas made from old pine. Under it, there is a loose board. Thomas made it loose on purpose, he said. Every old house needs a secret place for important things. Under that board is a small green metal safe, an old-fashioned safe with a dial. Thomas put it there in 1998 after a burglary 2 streets over. We kept birth certificates, our marriage license, our wills, and the deed to the land in it. I had not opened it since Thomas died. I was afraid of what I would feel. I knelt down. My knees cracked. At 62, your knees tell you the weather and your life story. I turned the dial. 12:34:7. Thomas's birthday. It clicked. Open inside, there were things I expected, and things that would change the next year of my life. Before I tell you what was in the safe, I need to tell you how this house was built, because houses are never just wood. I met Thomas when I was 19. He was 22, a carpenter's apprentice with big hands and a quiet laugh. I was working at the public library after school to help my mother pay rent. My mother, Eleanor, was a librarian in a small town in Maine. She raised me alone after my father left when I was 8. Thomas did not have much, but he had a plan. His father left him a small piece of land outside Asheville, North Carolina, and a debt of $4,000, which in 1980 was a lot. He said, Meg, if we build a house on that land, we will have no rent. If we have no rent, we can have a life. The same week he asked me to marry him, I got a letter. I had auditioned for a music program in Boston. My piano teacher, Mrs. Albright, had written a letter saying I had real talent, not just hobby talent. The program offered me a partial scholarship. It was not Juilliard, but it was a door, a real door. I remember sitting at our kitchen table in my mother's tiny apartment. The acceptance letter on one side. Thomas's sketch of a house on graph paper on the other. Thomas looked at me and said, Meg, I cannot ask you to give that up. If you go to Boston, I will wait, or I will come with you." He meant it. Thomas never lied. But I knew if I went to Boston, he would follow and work construction to support me, and resent me quietly for 10 years. And I knew if I stayed, I would resent him quietly for 10 years. Love at that age feels like you have to choose who gets to resent who. I chose Thomas. I chose the house. I told Mrs. Albright. No, my mother cried when I told her. She said, "Margaret, never make yourself small to make a man feel big." Then she hugged me and said, "But build a big house so you have room to grow back." We built the house in 9 months. We did it ourselves with help from Thomas's uncle. I was 4 months pregnant with David when we hammered the roof. I painted every wall twice. I learned to tile a bathroom from a book I borrowed from the library. I sewed curtains from bedsheets. For 40 years I kept the books for Thomas's business. Every estimate, every invoice, every tax form I did. Thomas always told clients, "My wife is my business partner, she just does not have a business card." But we never put that on paper. On paper it was Thomas's business. On paper I was a housewife. When Thomas died, our lawyer Jim, who had been Thomas's best friend since high school, told me the house was now mine. Joint tenancy with right of survivorship. David was there in Jim's office. He heard it. He said, "That makes sense, Mom. But Jessica has a mother who watches a lot of real estate shows. Her mother told her that as the only son, David should have equity." That word again. Equity. That is when they started calling my part of the house the small unit. As if I was a tenant they were being kind to. I sat on the floor at 2 in the morning with the safe open in front of me, remembering all of this, and I finally understood something. I had spent 40 years thinking contribution meant a paycheck. I had let other people define my worth by a W-2 form. Thomas never did. That is why what I found next did not surprise me as much as it should have. Inside the safe, on top, was the original deed to our land, from 1982. Under that, our wills from 2005. Under that, a small envelope with $3,000 cash, emergency money Thomas always kept, and under that a brand new deed I had never seen. It was dated October 14, 2019. 2 years before Thomas died. It was a quitclaim deed. It transferred Thomas's interest in our house and land to me, Margaret Ellis, as her sole and separate property. Paper clipped to it was a note in Thomas's messy handwriting. I know his handwriting like I know my own. He wrote the way he built, a little crooked but strong. Meg. My lawyer friend Jim said, "This is how to protect you. David is a good boy, but Jessica has expensive eyes and her mother talks too much. If anything happens to me, I do not want you to have to fight anyone for the roof over your head. This house is yours, completely. You built it more than I did. I remember you carrying shingles while pregnant. Do not let anyone tell you different. Love you, Meggie." TPS opened the other envelopes. It is time. My hands were shaking so hard I had to sit on them. For 2 years I had thought I owned this house as a widow. I did. But I did not know Thomas had made sure no one, not even a court, could argue I only owned half. He gave me the whole thing, legally, while he was still alive because he knew. He knew his son, I cried. Quietly, so no one would hear. Under that deed was a thick stack of bank statements, from Asheville Savings Bank. In my name, Margaret Ellis. The account was opened in 1985. The first deposit was $40. The memo line said piano lessons. Mrs. Henderson's boy, I remembered. When David was 2 and Sarah was a newborn, I taught piano to 3 kids in the neighborhood. $20 an hour. I also did sewings alterations for people at church. $10 to hem a dress. Thomas always told me, "Keep that money, Meg. That is your fun money. Buy something nice." I kept some in a cookie jar for groceries, but apparently, Thomas took most of it to the bank every Friday, without telling me, every single week for 35 years. Sometimes $50, sometimes $200. Sometimes after Sarah started school and I taught more $500, and he invested it. In the early 90s, he moved it into mutual funds. In the 2000s, index funds. The last statement, dated 1 month before he died, August 2021, showed a balance of $412,387.42. $412,000. I, who was told I never contributed, had been contributing for 35 years without knowing it. My small, invisible $20. Here and there, my hemming and my piano lessons had been turned by a man who loved me quietly into almost $500,000. I thought that was everything. I thought that was the end of the secret. I was wrong. There was one more bundle at the bottom of the safe, tied with blue string in my mother's handwriting, and I have to tell you, what was in those letters made the money feel small. My mother, Eleanor Finch, was a librarian in Bar Harbor, Maine, for 32 years. She married a fisherman named Robert Finch when she was 19. He was a hard man who drank and used his fists when the catch was bad. He left when I was 8. My mother never remarried, she never dated. She raised me on a librarian's salary and overdue book fines and a pride that could fill a room. She played piano like an angel. That is where I got it from. She taught me on an upright piano in the back of the library after hours. When I was 16, she told me, "Margaret, never make yourself small to make a man feel big. If you love music, do not let anyone take it. Promise me." Then she died when I was 24, just after David was born. Ovarian cancer fast, 6 months from diagnosis to grave. I was too tired and too postpartum to grieve properly. I have been grieving her in installments for 38 years. The bundle in the safe had 12 letters, all addressed to me, all in her thin, slanted handwriting that always ran out of ink at the end of a line, all never sent. The top one was dated October 1981, the month I called to say I would not go to Boston and would marry Thomas instead. I opened it with hands that would not stop shaking. "My dearest Meg, if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and you have finally found the courage to look in the places you were told not to look. I wrote this the day you called to say you would not go to Boston. I was proud of you and heartbroken for you at the same time. You sounded so sure. Love makes young women so sure. I did not want to tell you this over the phone, and then I ran out of time. Your father, the man you called father, Robert Finch, was not your biological father. Your real father was a man named Samuel Hart. He was a piano tuner who came to the library every spring to tune our old upright. He loved books and he loved me and he loved you before you were born. He could not marry me because he was already married with 2 boys in Portland. But he was a good man in his own broken way. He never stopped sending a little money even after you were born. He died last year and left me a little cottage on the edge of Bar Harbor, and a small amount of money in trust. I never used it. I was saving it for you, for when you would need a door that was only yours. The cottage is at 14 Larkspur Lane. The deed is in my desk at the library. I have not told anyone. The key is taped under the desk drawer. Do not be angry that I never told you. I wanted you to have a father, even if he was not perfect, and I wanted you to have a choice, even if it is a hard one. Play again, Meg, for me, for us. All my love, Mom." I sat on the cold floor and cried for the first time since Thomas died. Not pretty tears, loud, ugly, shaking sobs that hurt my ribs. For 40 years I thought I had no family left except Thomas and the children. For 40 years I thought I had no place that was truly mine. And all this time, my mother had left me a cottage by the sea. Under the letters was another envelope. Inside was a deed, old, handwritten, for 14 Larkspur Lane, Bar Harbor, Maine. Transfer on death to Eleanor Finch, then to her daughter Margaret Ellis. And under that was a letter from a law firm in Maine, dated September 2020. It was addressed to Margaret Ellis, care of Thomas Ellis. It said the cottage had been held in a maintenance trust, taxes paid by the trust, and that as the last living heir I should contact them immediately to claim it. The estimated value was $280,000, even in need of repair. The letter had been opened. I recognized the tear. Thomas had opened it. He knew. Thomas knew about the cottage, and he kept it secret. At first I felt a flash of anger. Then I saw a sticky note on the back in Thomas's handwriting. "Jim says trust is good. Leave it until she needs it. Tell her when she is ready. T." My mother made him promise. Thomas made Jim promise. 2 men keeping a secret for me, not from me. At the very bottom of the safe, under everything, was a small cassette tape. Thomas's voice. He used to record messages on an old recorder when he worked late in the shop so I would not worry. I have an old tape player in the annex. I crawled over to it, my knees screaming. I put the tape in and pressed play. His voice filled the small room. Rough, tired, a little static. Meg, if you are hearing this, it means I am gone, and you finally opened the damn safe. I told you to open it every year when we did taxes, but you never listened. Stubborn as always, so listen. 3 things. 1. The house is yours. 100%. Do not let anyone, even David, tell you otherwise. You built this house with me. You carried shingles pregnant. You are the reason it stood. 2. That money in Asheville savings. That is yours. It was always yours. You gave up Boston for me. I never forgot that. I heard you playing air piano while you washed dishes for 40 years, so I figured if you could not have Boston, at least you could have freedom. You could have freedom. $400,000 of freedom. Use it. 3. Okay. 3 things. I lied. 4 things. Go to Maine, Meggie. Your mom told me about the cottage back in '99 before she died. She made me promise not to tell you until you really needed a place that was only yours. I think you might need it now. I think you have needed it for a while. The key is taped under my workbench. Go see the ocean for me. I love you, Meggie. You were always the strong one. You just let us think we were, Thomas. The tape hissed. Then silence. I turned it off. The annex was silent. Outside I could hear David's car alarm beep twice. He always locks it twice, as if someone wants to steal his 10-year-old Toyota. I was 62. I had a house that was legally only mine. $418,000 that was legally only mine. And a cottage by the sea that was only mine. Worth another $280,000. And I had a family who thought I had nothing. Women my age are often told we have 2 choices. Be bitter, or be a doormat. Shout and be called crazies and emotional, or stay silent and be called weak and be walked over. My mother taught me there is a 3rd choice. Quiet dignity, plus action. I did not confront David the next morning. I made pancakes. I put blueberries in them because Noah likes blueberries. I smiled. I said, David, you are right. We should talk about the future of the house properly. Can we have a family meeting on Saturday? Invite Jim the lawyer? I think we need proper advice so no one is confused. David looked surprised, then pleased. He thought I had agreed to sell. Jessica smiled for the first time in months and said, That is very mature of you, Margaret. On Wednesday I called the law firm in Maine. A kind woman named Patricia answered. She said, Oh, Margaret, we have been trying to find you for 3 years. We sent letters to your husband. The cottage is still there. It needs a new roof and some love, but it is yours. Taxes are paid through the trust. It is worth about $300,000 now. Market is crazy. When can you come? I said, soon. On Thursday, I went to Asheville Savings Bank. I wore my good blouse. I brought my ID and the statements. The manager was a young man, maybe 30, who called me ma'am. He confirmed the balance. $418,902 now. It had grown. He asked if I wanted to move it or invest differently. I said no. I said I wanted a cashier's check for $10,000, and I wanted to keep the account exactly as it was. He asked why. I said, because for the first time in 40 years I want to know I can leave if I need to. On Friday I cleaned my annex. I packed my mother's letters in a Ziploc bag so they would not get damp. I packed Thomas's tape and tape player. I packed my good blue plates and my mother's small upright metronome. I left everything else. On Friday night, Lily knocked on my annex door. She had her small stuffed rabbit. Grandma, are you sad? She asked. I picked her up. She is 6, and still light enough to pick up. No, honey, I said. Grandma is sure who she is. Who are you? She asked. I am Margaret Ellis, I said. I am a mother and a grandmother and a carpenter and a piano teacher and a girl who once got accepted to Boston. She nodded like that made perfect sense. On Saturday at 10 in the morning the family meeting happened. Jim came. He is 72, retired. But he came because Thomas was his best friend. He brought a briefcase and a thermos of coffee. David had printed a real estate listing from Zillow. He had even contacted an agent friend of Jessica's. He had a spreadsheet. He started. Mom, the market is hot. We can get $650,000 for the whole property as is. We split it 50-50, you and us. That is more than fair given you did not pay the mortgage the last 10 years and you lived rent-free. Jessica added, and we found a lovely place for you, Sunny Pines. They have bingo and a nurse on site. And a van that takes you to Walmart. Jim looked at me. I nodded. Jim opened his briefcase. He took out the deed from 2019 with the county stamp. David, Jim said in his slow lawyer voice, I need to correct a serious misunderstanding. This house is not part of your father's estate. It is not to be split. In October 2019, Thomas transferred his entire interest in this property to Margaret as her sole and separate property. It was recorded with Buncombe County. Margaret owns this house, 100%. You have no legal right to sell it or to force her to sell it or to live here without her permission. Legally, you are month-to-month tenants at will. The silence was so loud I could hear the refrigerator hum and Noah breathing. Jessica turned red. That cannot be legal. He cannot do that without telling us. That is elder financial abuse or something. Jim looked at her over his glasses. It is perfectly legal, Jessica. It was joint property. He can transfer his interest to his spouse. He did with my help. David stared at the paper. His hands shook. Mom, is this true? You knew, I said. I found out on Tuesday night. After you told me I contributed nothing. I then took out the bank statement, the one showing $418,000. I slid it across the table. It left a faint line in the dust. This is what you called not contributing, I said, my voice calm. For 35 years, I taught piano. $20 an hour. I sewed dresses. $10 a hem. Your father saved it for me, every week. $418,000. In my name only. Jessica's mouth opened. No sound came out. Her real estate brain was calculating commission on a number she thought was zero. David whispered, Mom, I did not know. I swear I did not know. I said, I know you did not, because you never asked. You assumed a woman who stays home does nothing. You learned that somewhere, but you did not learn it from your father. I stood up. I am 5'3". I have never felt taller in my life. I am not selling this house, and I am not going to Sunny Pines. But you can stay here, David, if you want to, and pay rent. Market rent is $1,800 for a house like this. Or you can leave within 30 days. I will not charge you for this month. And Jessica, please do not rearrange my kitchen again without asking. Those cast iron pans were my mother's. They are older than you. Then I did something I had not done in 20 years in front of anyone. I went to the closet, took out the old Yamaha keyboard Thomas bought me at a yard sale in 2010, and never got tuned, plugged it in, and played. My fingers were stiff. Arthritis in the left pinky. I made mistakes, but I played Claire de Lune, the piece I was supposed to play for my Boston audition, in 1978, the piece my mother taught me. I played it badly and I played it completely. My granddaughter Lily came and sat next to me on the small bench. She put her small hand on top of mine, not playing, just resting. David cried. My grown son, 38 years old, a loan officer who talks about equity, cried like he did when he was 7, and fell off his bike and needed me to kiss his knee. They did not leave, not right away. For 2 weeks, the house was tense. Like after a storm when the power is out and no one knows what to say. Jessica barely spoke to me. She spoke to David in whispers behind closed doors. I heard the words lawyer and unfair and her age. David was ashamed. Shame makes people quiet or mean. Jessica chose mean for a few days. David chose quiet. On the 3rd week, David knocked on my annex door. He has never knocked before. He always just walked in. He held the drawing Noah made of me at the piano, now creased from being in his pocket. Mom, I am sorry, he said, and his voice cracked. I was weak. Jessica keeps saying we need more space, and her mother keeps saying you should downsize. And work has been. I took it out on you. Dad would be ashamed of me. I am ashamed of me. I patted the chair next to me. The chair Thomas made. Your father loved you, I said, but he knew what it is like to be told you are nothing. When his shop almost went bankrupt in 1992, after the big client did not pay, everyone told him to quit and get a real job at Lowe's. I was the only one who said, Keep going. We will eat beans if we have to, he remembered. He wanted someone to do that for me. David cried again. I let him. I do not want rent from you, I said after a while. I want respect. I want you to teach your children that a woman who keeps a house is working, that a woman who raises children and keeps books and teaches piano for $20 is contributing more than money can count. If you can do that, you can stay as long as you need, rent-free. This house was built for family, not for equity. He nodded, wiping his nose with his sleeve like when he was little. Jessica took longer. A month later she came to my annex with a small box. Inside was a set of new dish towels, blue with white stripes. Not expensive, thoughtful. She did not apologize with words. Some people cannot.
She said, "These are for the kitchen."
If you will teach me how to make your roast chicken? The way you do it with rosemary? Noah keeps asking for Grandma's chicken, not mine, I said. Yes, that was her apology. I accepted it. I did not tell them about Maine. Not yet. Some secrets are not for revenge. They are for yourself. They are the door that is only yours that my mother wrote about. Last month, when school ended, I took Lily and Noah and we drove to Bar Harbor. 12 hours with 2 stops for ice cream and 1 for a flat tire that I changed myself, because Thomas taught me. The cottage is small, white with blue shutters, exactly as my mother described in a letter I had not yet read. It smells of salt and old books and cold ocean. There is an upright piano in the living room, out of tune, covered in dust, but with a note on it. Tuned Spring 1979, S. Heart. My father, my real father. The deed says it is mine, but really it is ours, my mother's and mine and now Lily's. The roof does need work. I used $10,000 from my fund money to fix it. My fund money, I laughed when I wrote that check. I am teaching Lily to play. She is 6 and very serious about middle C. She says it is the most important note because it is in the middle. Noah likes to sit on the small porch and watch the lobster boats. I am 62. I thought my story was ending. I thought I was going to be moved to a small room with bingo and a van to Walmart. Instead, my story is just beginning. I have a house in Asheville that I built with my hands. I have $418,000 that I earned with my invisible work. And I have a cottage by the sea that my mother saved for me for 40 years. But more than that, I have learned what my mother tried to tell me in 1981, and what Thomas tried to tell me without words for 40 years. Never make yourself small to make someone else feel big, and never let anyone, even your own children, tell you that you have contributed nothing when you have given everything. My legacy is not loud. It is silent. It is in the curtains I sewed, the meals I cooked, the books I balanced, the songs I taught for $20. And now, finally, it is mine to spend. If you are a woman listening to this, and you are over 50, over 60, over 70, and you have been made to feel invisible in your own kitchen, I want you to know something Thomas knew. Your work counted, even when no one clapped. Your legacy is not what they say you contributed. It is what you know you built. This was Margaret's story. What is yours? If this story touched you, please share it with a mother, a grandmother, a daughter, a friend who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below and tell me where you are listening from, and what song your mother taught you. This is Silent Legacy. Some stories are not told, they are left behind. And we are here to finally tell them.